Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've viewed any of my videos beforehand. So it's somewhat strange to think that I actually started this channel about 12 years ago with a review of the telescope behind me, sat on an EQ6 mount, just to show just how physically big the thing is, set up in that position. So as noted on the title for this this video, we're looking at shoehorning the Skywatcher 300 PDS into a 2.2 meter Pulsar dome. Now, again, I'm not sponsored by Pulsar or by Skywatcher or even by Ioptron, which is the mount that I use. So this is entirely my opinion. It's my review. I don't even monetize the account, so I don't actually get paid for this by anybody. This is purely so that if, like I was about 6 months ago, wondering, do I buy a dome or don't I, and will I get my telescope inside that dome? Hopefully you can have the answer to that question. So in their brochures, Pulsar Observatories say that the 2.2 meter dome, which is the one I've got here, will take telescopes up to 12 inches in aperture. Now, I strongly suspect that Pulsar, when they're saying that, are probably talking about Schmidt-Cassegrains or possibly some of the RC scopes that you can get that are 12-inch aperture. I'm not necessarily thinking about a large Newtonian like the 300 PDS. Well, possibly they are. Again, I haven't contacted them to find out what their marketing was for that. So about 3 months ago, I purchased this dome got here. It's not a new dome, it's a second-hand one. It's one that another astronomer had no longer had any use for over towards Leicester Way. So I decided to buy it, installed it, and it's been up and running here for about 3 months now. One of the big worries I had when I was buying the dome and also installing it is would I be able to fit this monster in behind me? Because I've had this telescope well, since before this channel started, so it's a good 12 years now. And I've always liked this big Newtonian telescope. It gives fantastic views, and it also works really well as an astrograph. The only problem with it, particularly if you're outside in an exposed location, is that it is like a huge sail. So the very slightest wind, it just rattles everywhere, and that's your session gone, more or less. So there was a worry, would it fit in here? And I've had to do a few things in terms of the way in which it's mounted, the way in which I've got the counterbalance weight set up, in order for it to shoehorn in here, but it does fit, and that I suppose is the main thing. It's not 100% perfect fit. There are places, I'll show you in a moment, where as I move the scope around, it touches either the walls of the dome or one of these ribs here that actually hold the four sections of the dome together. It's also my understanding that Pulsar have actually changed the way in which the dome design goes together now. So apparently there's the aperture and the sides and back of the dome are apparently configured differently on the newer domes. Whether that would have an impact or not, I don't know. Wasn't really in my budget to buy a new dome, so I bought a second-hand one, and it presented its challenges, but it does work at least. So let's take a quick look at the mounting here. I did actually make an early part of this this video, which we might switch to, or actually mount the telescope onto the mount here. I can actually just about do it. As far as mounting it up is concerned, I can just about place the scope with its rings, with its Losmandy base plate onto the mount here in more or less one movement. I'm not having to sort of put everything on piecemeal, which has been one of my objectives, is trying to make sure that it's as simple to take off and put on as, you know, the 80mm Apo that I also use, even if it's slightly heavier. So let's just take a quick look at it, shall we? So the reason why I'm not going directly onto the Ioptron Losmandy plate here is purely down to the way in which the Losmandy plate is mounted on the bottom of the 300 PDS. It's actually held on there with two quite heavy and bulky 12mm Allen bolts, and they actually protrude right through into the path of the Losmandy plate. So they don't actually mount flush. And one of the things you need with the CEM120 is you need to be able to slide the Losmandy plate with your scope into position here. So that's just not possible the way in which the standard Losmandy plate on the Skywatcher Explorer is set up. And it'd be quite expensive to change it, and I haven't bothered to do it. So I'm still using the standard rings and the standard Losmandy plate. So let's stop waffling and get on with mounting the scope. This might be a struggle. Okay. So there we go. So again, we got the stopper. I don't know if you can see it, it's just here. So that sits on top of the geoptic puck I've got here. That stops the thing sliding out, and it really makes it easy, or slightly easier, to locate the telescope onto the mount puck. Now, over here I've currently got one counterweight in place. Centre balance mount like this one for the Ioptron, that actually requires almost an equivalent weight. I can't have an extended counterweight bar like you could with the EQ6 and just put about 20 kilos on. So I've actually got about got 10 kilos on here. I think in old money that's 22 pounds. So I'll just go and pop the other counterweights on. So I'm not sure how easy this is coming out. So as far as the mount is concerned, this is a CEM120. The noise you can hear underneath me is the floorboards creaking around. It's been very dry here in the UK, and the floorboards have shrunk a little bit, so they're creaking a bit. So as I pointed out in another video, this is a CEM120. This is the standard Losmandy plate that goes with it. And the problem you've got with the Skywatcher 300 PDS is these bolts on the Losmandy plate. You can't actually slide this Losmandy plate into the saddle on the CEM120, which creates its own problem because now you can see we've got about, what would that be? Looks about 30 millimeters or about an inch of what I've had to raise the telescope base plate up using this geoptic puck, plus a number of spaces behind it. If we can get in here, yeah, you can just about see those spaces there. So that's purely to mount the telescope here onto the Ioptron mount. Let me see if I can go out. Here we go. There. Let's just zoom out there. So that's a better view. So this little black box here, that is just a Losmandy block, or stop block. This works really well for me because this actually remains permanently on the telescope, and all I do is literally just bring it over the top of the puck here, rest it on top of the puck while I then go around the other side, I'll go around here, and do up the bolts. So again, so getting the whole assembly onto the mount can be done more or less in one movement here. So again, just going around the scope. This is all sat on a Rother Valley Optics heavyweight observatory mount. This is 1.1 meters high, which is a lot higher than the original Skywatcher mount on a tripod. That came down about here somewhere. So it's a good, 250 mil higher than it was with the original mounting a tripod. And obviously on the back, on the counterweight bar here, we've actually got 3 weights because we've got 30 kilos here, and we got about another 30 kilos there with the mount and the telescope. So it's quite a beast. So what's changed over the last 12 years is I no longer attempt to put a ST80 telescope for guiding on the back of the rings here. I'm actually using a 60mm guider here. This actually works much better within the observatory because what I find is in most orientation this is either immediately below or above the tube, and will actually shoot through the shutter aperture here. And that's probably why Pulsar are saying that if you want to put something bigger than a 12-inch scope, you're going to need the bigger dome, which is the 2.7 meter ones. I don't actually have space for that here, so hence we're dealing with a small one. So again, we just got autofocus around here. I haven't got the camera on here at the moment because I don't leave expensive things in the observatory. So these 2 little spikes down here, these are the counterweight bars of a Skywatcher Star Adventurer. The counterweight bar is tapped M8, and unfortunately all of these little screw holes around here on the CM120 are M8. The reason why I've got this set up here is so that I can mount the telescope tube just a little bit higher than I would normally. And the reason for that is, if you come down the back here, if you look at the cell here, there's not a lot of space here. I mean, there's basically a hand's width there. And what I was finding is, in its natural position, I would end up clouting the control box for the dome here. So not an ideal position. So there's a little bit of tape on here that tells me where to mount the telescope within the rings, which makes it just a little bit nose heavy with a camera on here. So we have these on here. Sorry, makes it tail heavy, sorry. So I have a bit of extra weight on the nose. But they actually work quite well. This will actually guide pretty much all night with this, and it's nicely balanced as well, or is when you've got the camera on there. In its current configuration, just a little bit off balance on one of the axes because of we're missing a bit of weight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch back to the alternate view, and you can see this thing being swung around inside the dome here. Okay, we're back. So tube fits in here quite well, so I'm going to just take the locks off the clutches, and you can see that, there we go, see, it does collide in 80 volt position. It just about moves around, but it does end up colliding with the dome in certain positions, so you do have to be careful when you're moving this thing around. What this means in practical terms is I'm not actually able to automate the system. So one of the things I cannot do currently is set up APT, or I might eventually go to Nina, but at the moment I'm using APT to do the full run of lights, maybe set up some darks, and then at the end of the session either go to a park position, which for me is over here somewhere. Come over to here. I normally park about here. And then I've got a flat panel that goes on top of the tube here. I'll be a little bit unfair on myself because I've got the lens cap on. So that's 5 mil. That's a whole 5 mil of extra space that I've got. So it now doesn't contact. But as you say, that it is millimeters of clearance you've got in here. But in this position here, park, I can do my flats. I normally have the shutter over the top of that when I park it. And if I just lock off the clutches here, I can slew onto a target or come back to zero position here. So yes, it works. Yes, there is space, but it is millimeters, or I don't know what you say that in inches. You know, tenths or eighths of an inch, if you want to use the old money. So in practical terms, it means that when I go onto a target, I'm having to move the dome, move the telescope, make sure neither one of them collides with the other, and then once I'm on target, then I can leave the system, and it'll run virtually all night. It does preclude me doing anything like meridian flip, because you know the CM120, like a lot of centre balance mounts, when it gets to meridian, it does actually have to turn over. You can't let it go very much beyond it in a weight set position, which is what I could do with the NEQ6. It's not great doing it that way, but it gives you some leeway. So I can't do meridian flip with this telescope on here without actually being in here to monitor it doing it, moving the dome around manually, and then going back onto my target. So that is a bit of a pain. Eventually, that might be one of the reasons why, and it'll be a painful decision, I end up getting rid of the 12-inch here and coming in with something smaller, like 10-inch SCT or some kind of RC scope. So that may be a subject for a future video, but for now, yeah, can you fit 12-inch Newtonian telescope inside a Pulsar dome? Yes, you can. If you're going to do it and you haven't got one, what I recommend is you look at one of the F4s. This one's F5. This is 1500 millimeters in length. The F4s are about 1200 mil, and I think with an F4, you'll probably get it in here easily. And indeed, that might actually be one of my options. I might actually trade this one in for the F4 Quattro version of it, and then I'll have about 300 millimeters or a foot if you're using the old systems, and then it will move around quite easily in here, and there won't be the collisions that I've currently got. But so there you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you've got any questions, leave a comment or leave a like, and maybe I'll make another video one day. You never know.